Welcome to episode 7 of Lemme Finish. Last episode I said this one was going to probably be the entirety of the Fig Swig album release party, and I was wrong because that's not next. I found out on Facebook you can go to your entire timeline and just have it be a year or a month if you want. So I'm going through and also cross-referencing with my archive stories on Instagram to see, to try and complete the timeline more. And I think at the end of this season, instead of at the start of the episodes like I originally was gonna, at the end of the season, I'll go through and correct parts of the story that I was kind of off about, or just what timelines were incorrect. So what happened next actually was me and Swiggle went and did a show somewhere around this time. I'm not exactly 100% sure. But at the show, someone started asking us about a music video, which we did not have at the time. And my only music video was Channel, and it was pretty terrible. So I had to I felt like redeem myself from that, and especially if I was doing a video with Swiggle, it had to be like significantly cool. So I talked to David, and David was young Ned's and like childhood friend, him and Chris, I believe. So in turn they knew Gareth as well. That three core group that lived in that Troutdale house, young Ned, Gareth, and Chris, had known each other, I'm pretty sure, since like second grade. When they come on for their episodes, I'll have them correct me if not. But David was like young Ned's oldest friend. He had been in bands with him, and they'd made music together for years. And David lived up on the mountain in Corbett, and he had a big, huge, like a mansion and a bunch of acres of property. David is a fish and was always like an unofficial fish. He would come over all the time and play Magic and come to all the parties and stuff that we had at Troutdale House. And then now when Ned and him were still in a band together, every time I booked a show, they would play it. He came to all of our big stuff. David's, he's our saxophone guy. But I asked him if we could go to his house and throw a show and record the video there, which was, in hindsight, a terrible idea. He lived like miles up the mountain to the point where there was no cell phone signal, and the driveway doesn't look like a driveway. It looks like you're driving into the woods. Like, it's horrible to find, and we were asking people to come there while we performed, and we were going to shoot the video. I went to a dispensary near my house, and I think I bought 4 ounces. Like, I had my whole car group go in, and I paid for as much weed as I could. And then my brother grew weed. My brother-in-law grew weed at the time, so I went and picked up as much as I could get from him. And then I bought a 1 ounce cone, like a giant joint cone that fit an ounce into it. I invited like 20-30 rappers from the scene, and a lot of them came, and a lot of them performed. And we just got as much. I bought a gas mask bong thing. I bought giant bong. The song was called Twisted Up, so I did everything pre-advanced that I could. And we were going to a mansion in Corbett. Everything went pretty well, honestly. That was one of those days where like things could have gone desperately wrong, and they did not. Like there was probably 30 people for the show on top of the 10 to 15 artists that were there. And a ton of La Familia was there, Mary LaCosta, Swiggle, and I think Lai was at Caldera during this time, but Timmy was there, and a lot of the fish, young Ned, Gareth, Chris. And to this day, I think it's hilarious that you can go on Swiggle's YouTube and find that video, and there's Chris juggling weed jars in the background and shit. It was a wild day. And around that time, Ellis and Muffin decided they were going to move out to Oregon. I had just gotten divorced, and then I had just broken up with my girlfriend at the time. They were going to move into the garage with me, and Ellis was bringing a camera to do videos. The day Ellis got there, I think I told Swiggle, the dude from Michigan is here. He's real. And he invited us over, and we got to his house, and he was showing him his camera, and Swiggle's like, let's shoot a video right now. And I had a car where the trunk wouldn't stay open, like a shitty minivan I had bought from young Ned, which he had bought from Gareth. So we like propped it open with an umbrella, and the song was called Chips and Dip, and we just got chips and dip and licorice, and we're eating it in the trunk, and then we drove downtown and shot downtown. Like, it was a super guerrilla style night, but like looking back, that was probably my best video of the early times. Like, it looked like an early Chief Keef video. I mean, the song is what it is. Swiggle did fine, but yeah, it is what it is. But that video was pretty cool, and Ellis did it that night, and it came out pretty goddamn quickly. I had left FedEx like the year prior and was working at that dildo factory, which somehow connected me to Swiggle through Sam. I kept in contact with a few of the people that I worked with or worked for me. I was a manager there. And there was a kid who was much younger than me but reminded me of me, and I felt bad for him. So his name was Frostbite, and he eventually became a fish, and he shot a few of our videos, a few of my videos, and took photos at a couple of shows, but we couldn't keep in contact with him. It was a bit of a mess. I don't remember exactly when he left, but I doubt he'll come up again in the story, but I don't got any ill will towards him, so shout out Frostbite wherever you are. And then the other one was Jay Casa, who we do harbor some resentment for, but that'll come up later. He was a DJ and producer, and I worked with him at FedEx. So they had joined right before the Fig Swig album release party, and we threw that in Troutdale for some reason at our house, which was right off of a fucking highway. So like, there wasn't a lot of parking. It wasn't great to have drunk people wandering in the streets. We lived next door to a former sheriff. It was, and yes, we had parties, but not like a show where we were trying to get as many people into the building as possible. And Swiggle invited a journalist to come out from some website, and we made a bunch of edibles that we were going to sell and give out for free with the album if people purchased the album we had on CD. Me and Swiggle were going to perform some songs from it. Ellis was out here now, so we were going to be able to perform with him. He was going to be able to perform for the first time, and I was going to be able to perform with him for the first time. And everybody showed up around 7, at least in the group, and our friends, Frostbite, Casa, Andrew, and then obviously the people that lived in the Troutdale house. I would say by 8, it was a bit out of control. We had started the performances at like 7:30, just because we booked as many people as we could to hope that we could get as many people as we could there to buy the album. Again, mistake. This is an episode of mistakes. This is we made a lot of mistakes this era. Within 5 minutes, someone walked up to me and said that the tray of edibles was empty. So someone took all of those pretty much right away. And then me and Swiggle did a song early on in the night, and then he was helping me keep track of who was next and getting people on to perform at this sound stage type deal that we had in the living room, that we had asked a set of local artists if they would be willing to bring their equipment out if we would give them a slot to perform, and they did. Yeah, so the first thing that went wrong was someone walked away from the edibles, and those were gone. And then about a quarter way through the night, I lost Swiggle and couldn't get a hold of him. That comes into play again in a minute. So I was waiting to perform again with Swiggle the rest of the album. I think up to this point we only did Twistin' Up. And at that point, someone came up to me and said they couldn't find Tag. So we had lost Tag and Swiggle. I'll tell you what happened to them in a minute, but just know I was down a Tag and a Swiggle. It was pretty much me, Young Ned, and Gareth trying to keep the house from falling apart. And at some point, Young Ned's dad walked up to me and him and was just like, "Hey, it's a killer party." We're like, "Thanks, man. Grab an album. You can have one for free." And he's like, "Oh, for sure. You guys know about the kids smoking meth in the living room?" And me and Ned sprint over to the living room, and there was just a group of like high school kids straight up smoking. We were like, "You guys got to get the fuck out of here." And I was like baffled as to how these random kids could get here, but I was like, it's a show. Like, we tried to keep the address kind of private, like you had to ask us for it. And then as they were leaving, I said, "How did you guys know about the show?" And they said, "It's on Instagram." And I looked, and someone who like ran a party account had posted the address in their story, so it got very full. And interestingly enough, most people know Makes Waves and Tyree are, they've been fish for a long time now. Before we knew who they were, and we learned this later, they were at the Fig and Swig release party at that house. They freestyled in the living room with us. Ellis took gravity bong hits with Tyree on the back porch, and none of us realized this until 3 years later. And that night I ended up getting really fucked up and had some fucked up shit happen to me that we don't have to get into. But after I was reintroduced, I found someone who knew where Tag was, and Tag JC said that he had been handed a blunt by somebody, didn't want to smoke it, handed it to Tag. Tag smoked it and then couldn't stop shivering and moving, and he was pretty sure it was laced with cocaine. So Tag was in his bed, shivering from a blunt he was given from JC, who was given to him by presumably one of the meth high school students. And then I finally got a hold of Swiggle. He took a bunch of mushrooms at the show, and he was at Fred Meyer's tripping his fucking balls out. So it was pretty much just me and young Ned trying to hold the sanctity of the show together, and I decided to drink as much as I physically could because of how poorly the night was going. And then the journalist appeared, and I don't remember this part, but I read it, and I just went off. Like, I regurgitated things I had just heard people from Portland say, because I just got here, and I was like, fuck Amine, what does Cool Nuts do for the city? I could beat Damian Lillard in a rap bat. I said so much fucking bull. It was so embarrassing to read, and I'm glad I don't know the name of it, because if I did, I would probably go find it and post it on Patreon, but I can't. I'm glad it's gone. So we did everything we set out to do technically. We got a bunch of people there. People did have a good time. We did sell CDs. We did get a journalist there to get some press. And I guess we all got fucked up, which was probably a goal of ours back then. But overall, I would say that release party, while, again, we were learning a lot throwing shows ourselves, which, when people don't book you, book yourself. People don't pay you, pay yourself. If people don't hire you, hire yourself. So we booked ourselves. That was how a lot of our early stuff happened. Our two biggest early events, I would say at least top 5, were the show me and Tag threw, and then this show we all threw. It was the most fucked up house party I've ever been to. I feel like someone got blown in the bathroom, and then the dude getting blown in the bathroom had to pee, and it was a mess. We had to clean up so much puke and bodily functions. Like, it was one of the most traumatizing day of the early years of us being like, can we handle this lifestyle? And boy, is that like baby shit now compared to everything we've done and been through. But at the time, that was we all had to recuperate from the events of that day. Yeah, and shortly after that, like, me and Swiggle just got back to work. We just started doing show after show after show. We didn't really shoot any more videos for that album, but we made a couple of songs. Like, me and Swiggle just dropped Fig and Swig 2, I think, in 2022, end of 2022, maybe early 2023. But we started it right after Fig and Swig ended. We made Sisters and Heathens, I would say within 2 or 3 months of Fig and Swig ending. And this is around the time I think Timmy told me we had a show at a cannabis club. That's what it was. And I would perform my heart out because there was a ton of people there. And when I walked off stage, Timmy dapped me up and was like, that was fucking tight, man. I just wish your songs were better so I could sing along. And that smacked me in my fucking face. And I had like a life-changing night maybe 3 days later. And that pretty much sparked the second half, I would say, of the early story. This like chapter 2 almost of season 1 starts after Timmy told me I fucking sucked. thank y'all for listening. And as always, before you interrupt me, let me finish.